Love is supposed to be built on a foundation of trust. But what happens when that trust is broken? In today's story, we'll step into a whirlwind of emotions where lies and betrayal blur the lines between love and deceit. With every twist, the characters are forced to face painful truths, and the question arises, can love truly survive when it's built on a lie? Stay with us as we unfold this powerful story, one that will make you reflect on the true meaning of loyalty and honesty in relationships. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts. Have you ever found a Reddit post and felt like you were hit in the stomach by the universe? For me, that's just how it began, with a cozy job, a cozy little house in the Portland suburbs, and the lady I've loved since college spending my mornings and evenings with me. I believed my life was on a solid foundation. My name is Theo, and I'm 31 years old. My 30-year-old wife, Claire, was lively in ways that brightened the world, or at least that's how I'd characterize her to friends and family. We had been married for 6 years and together since we were both 20, and I honestly thought we were in sync, laughing at stupid memes, bickering over where to get takeout, and making plans for children in the upcoming years. We weren't flawless, but then, who is? Then that night arrived. I was just browsing Reddit as usual to relax after work. I wasn't even searching for anything unusual, snooping, or paranoid. To be honest, it had become a nightly ritual, drinking a beer, cuddling with my dog Max at my feet, and getting stories and memes from Reddit's homepage. The subject, I 30F don't know how to confess that I cheated on my husband 31M with his best friend, caught my attention on relationship advice. Perhaps it was the ages that attracted my attention. Or perhaps a deranged sixth sense was attempting to warn me of the horror I was about to encounter. Damn, this guy is going to have his heart broken, I thought as I clicked it. I had no idea that it was me. Although names were not mentioned in the post, the information was the same. The ages, how long the romance lasted, the pair met while attending college, the scene, the chronology, interests. Everything came together so well that I experienced a chilling flush. It's just a coincidence. I initially persuaded myself. You're thinking too much. Then she commented, it happened last month when my husband's best friend stayed with us while he was in town for a conference. My memory of that period was too vivid. Ben, who used to be my best friend, had traveled from New York and spent 5 days with us. Our friendship began in high school. He had a knack for making everyone in a room feel like they belonged, and was charming and engaging. I never questioned him at all. Yes, he and Claire had always been friendly, but I had assumed it was because they had a sense of humor and art. In fact, there were moments when I was thankful that my wife and my best friend got along. However, one Reddit post turned that thankfulness into ash. Claire had written, but clearly under a fictitious name. One evening after my husband had gone to bed, we were drinking and chatting. I didn't stop it, but one thing led to another. I had no desire to. I could feel my heart thumping in my ears as I gazed at those words. I kept reading it, telling myself that this had to be someone else. It must have been. What were the odds after all? However, her writing this was the final nail in the coffin. The following morning, we even chuckled at the irony of my husband's naive faith in us both. The world tilted. I felt like throwing up. My palms were sweating, and my mouth felt dry. My dog, Max, glanced up at me as if he sensed something was off. In fact, Claire had said that line, that terrible line, at least once, in a lighthearted manner. One evening after dinner, she had chuckled and remarked, Theo, you're too trusting. You would probably still believe that Ben and I were merely watching movies if we fled together. She had laughed, and so had I. I was so damned blind. I didn't get any sleep that evening. I simply sat there reading the article over and over again, relating each sentence to conversations, experiences, and even inner jokes. It was similar to revisiting a lovely dream that had been torn apart to expose its rotting core. I made up my mind by 4 a.m. I had to face her. Not out of rage, though. Not quite yet. I had to be certain. I had to look into her eyes to see it. So I did what any troubled husband with a suspicion stoked by Reddit would do. I acted as though nothing was wrong. Claire asked if I wanted coffee that morning. As she came down in her robe, smiling and sleepy-eyed, her voice still hoarse from sleep, I gazed at her, perplexed by her seemingly typical behavior. So informal. She prepared French toast. She gave me a cheek kiss. She referred to me as babe. I inquired about Ben's night here. She didn't recoil, didn't think twice. Simply stated, I believe he enjoyed the independent film we saw. What was its name? She recalled the sharing blanket, the wine we drank, and the movie. She fucked my closest friend while I was sleeping upstairs. But other than that, everything. I hadn't yet felt the full force of the anger. I felt mostly hollow, as if I were witnessing a stranger in my house pose as my wife. So I looked further. After she washed, I began to check her phone. I am aware that snooping is harmful. However, what remains to be protected when confidence has already been broken? She exercised caution. No messages. No shady pictures. However, her erased history revealed that she had looked up is emotional cheating real, and how to tell your husband you cheated. Okay, that was real. However, this went beyond sentimentality. This was really worse. I required evidence. Concrete evidence. Some part of me still needed her to say it, even if I wanted to yell at her and demand answers. I had to hear it directly from her. I chose to play the long game as a result. In the living room, where she frequently took calls when she thought I wasn't there, I installed a covert recording app on my old phone and had it plugged in behind the bookshelf. I had low expectations. 3 days later, however, I received enough to shatter me. At first, I didn't want to listen to the recording. The phone was left unattended for a day or two. My chest tensed each time I looked at it. It seemed like I was challenging myself to pull the pin while gazing at a live grenade. There was still a part of me that hoped I was mistaken, that this was just some horrible coincidence, some cruel internet joke that I had carried into my actual life. But in the back of your mind, I was aware. I bided my time till the house was deserted. Like clockwork, Claire had gone to yoga on Tuesdays. After taking Max for a walk, I returned home, filled my coffee mug with a double shot of bourbon, and then I sat down in the kitchen while holding the phone. I pressed play with a shaky thumb. Nothing at first. Only background noise. The refrigerator's gentle hum. The creaking of a chair. Then she heard her slippers shuffle across the tile, as well as her voice. Yes, I am alone myself. He and Max are out. I felt sick to my stomach. The person on the phone was Claire. She chuckled softly, as if this were a coffee conversation rather than a damned betrayal. No, he hasn't learned anything yet. Although he hasn't spoken, I believe he has suspicions. A pause. Next. Yeah. I've exercised caution. I erased everything. The browser was cleared. He doesn't snoop around. My knuckles became white as I clamped down on the table's edge. She was conversing with Ben. I didn't require a name to be said. I simply knew. Her voice softened and lowered as she remarked, I still think about that night. I don't regret it, but I didn't expect it to happen. The words buried themselves in my skin even after I closed my eyes. She said, I sometimes wonder if it wasn't a mistake at all. She hesitated once again. Next, I can't abandon Theo. Not quite yet. He treats me well. He has faith in me. He is secure. Something inside of me broke at that very moment. Secure. Was I secure? I was simply a fucking safety net. I wasn't her spouse, her partner, or the man she vowed to love through good times and bad. A cushion. She held on to a small, peaceful life while pursuing a perverse delight with the man I used to call my brother. I couldn't recall standing or strolling or snatching my coat. All I knew was that I was in my car 5 minutes later, my heart thumping like a war drum, my knuckles white around the steering wheel, and my engine snarling. I had no idea where I was going. Right away, anywhere where the smell of falsehoods wasn't strong. I found myself at my sister Naomi's house. She was sweating and had her hair up in a bun when she opened the door, and one glance at me told her all she needed to know. She didn't inquire. She simply opened her arms, and I sobbed like a child for the first time in years. Naomi always had that silent power that kept you together without the need for words. She didn't pry or interrupt. As I poured everything, they simply sat with me on the floor, arms around my shoulder, back against the couch. Reddit, the article, the audio recording, Ben, Claire, everything. She didn't need to apologize, so she didn't. She was silent in a way that sent the message, I see you, I hear you, you're not alone. I crashed on her couch that night. Max, the one living creature I knew that hadn't lied to me, cuddled up at my feet once more. I didn't get any sleep. My heart ached as I gazed at the ceiling and reminisced about all of the times Claire and I had spent together, including the road trips, the barefoot dances in the kitchen, the whispered jokes under the covers, and the vows made amid the fall foliage. It was all poisoned. I returned home the following morning. It's not that I pardoned her, because I wanted to see her deceive me again. When I entered the kitchen, she was wearing that old hoodie of mine that she always stole, her hair still wet from a shower. She grinned, as if nothing had happened. She said, "Hey, sweetie, you vanished last night. Is everything all right?" God, that smile used to make me happy. My throat now felt like acid. I said in a bland voice. I went to Naomi's. Her smile wavered. Oh, did something happen? I simply watched her, waiting for her to snap, for her hands to spasm, for her eyes to twitch. She was good, though. Be calm, polished, like an old-timer. I felt like screaming. I wanted to yell, "I know," and pull her phone into her face, but I refrained. Not quite yet. Rather, I said, last night. I noticed something strange on Reddit. A slight tenseness ran through her body, insufficient to be noticed unless you were paying close attention. Oh? Her voice was too light as she asked. A woman was discussing cheating on her husband with his best buddy in a post. We sounded just like that. Crazy, huh? Claire turned back to wash a mug after giving an awkward and forced laugh. Yes, there are a lot of strange people on the internet. All right, I remarked, taking a step forward. However, the details, man, they were exactly in line. The fact that the man stayed for a week was even noted. Similar to Ben. She stopped. Not in a big way. Not in the style of Hollywood. There was only a brief hesitation before the mug fell out of her grasp and broke in the sink. She swore and made an effort to hide it, but I could see the expression in her eyes. Fear. That was it. The initial fissure in her armor. I didn't sleep again that night. How long had it been going on? 1,000 thoughts whirled through my head. Was it only once? Was I ever truly important to Ben? However, one question stood out above the others. Why? Why would you betray me? I have to be aware. I therefore made a detailed plan. The altercation, the reality, the conclusion. It was 3 days later. Pretend for 3 days. Of grinning as if nothing was wrong while swallowing bile. Of her cooking meals I used to crave. Kissing me as if she hadn't stuck a knife in my ribs. And laughing at shows we used to enjoy. I believed I could wait a little while longer. I was unable to. It was a Thursday evening. With her legs tucked beneath her and one of my old hoodies wrapped over her, she was scrolling through her phone on the couch, seemingly safe in our place. As if we were secure. I just watched her from the doorway, At first, she didn't notice. Then she raised her head. "Are you all right?" I didn't respond. I went to the bookcase, took out the phone I had concealed beneath the picture frame, the one that had captured every private conversation and every hushed admission, and held it up. She looked exhausted. She had never turned so pale in my life, not even the automobile crash she was in last year. Not even after learning that her father had cancer. This was not like the others. This was bare, unadulterated terror. I didn't yell, did not toss anything, didn't collapse. I simply inquired, "How long?" She remained silent. She blinked and parted her lips, as if she wanted to lie but was unable to think of the correct words quickly enough. So I asked once more, "How much time has it lasted?" "Nothing has changed." I inhaled, one of those big, long breaths that seemed to be your last. With a steady but slightly cracked voice, I added, "I know about Ben. I know what happened while I was sleeping upstairs. I am aware of your phone conversation. I am fully informed." She didn't deny that her lip trembled. She was unable to. No confession could have screamed louder than the quiet between us. Her voice was so tiny that it hardly reached me when she eventually murmured, "I'm sorry." I chuckled sharply and bitterly. "Sorry for being unfaithful? Or are you sad you were caught?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I didn't intend for it to occur." "No," I interrupted. "You allowed it to occur. You desired it. You assured him that you had no regrets." Her hands shot to her face, as if she could cover her eyes to conceal the embarrassment. But I wasn't going to spare her that. I wanted her to experience this, to take a seat in it. The word burned in my mouth as I spat. "You said I was safe, as if I were a comfortable bed you burrow back into after you're done fucking around," she cried. "Not the kind that is performed. The true kind, raw, untidy. Like if something had finally given out inside of her. And I felt less hatred for her for a while, but just for a second. She informed me that it had happened once, that evening. Only once, that it was an error. Ben was there. She felt lonely. They drank too much wine, and then one thing led to another. The problem is that when individuals say one thing led to another, they are actually referring to a decision they made. They simply do not wish to possess it. I responded in a voice that was almost audible above a whisper. "You could have told me. You had the option to confess. Instead of grinning at me like we were fine every single day, you could have said anything." She made a grab for me. I took a step back. I looked directly into her eyes and said, "It's not a mistake that you slept with my best friend, Claire. That is a choice." The fissures then became more noticeable. It wasn't only that night, she acknowledged. Once became 3. Then there were texts, makes calls, pictures. Her voice was shaking as she said, "I didn't mean to fall for him." Suddenly, I sensed the floor giving way. "You adore him?" She sobbed more. I'm not sure what I feel anymore." Slowly, I nodded, since I was aware of my feelings. Completed. The same evening, I packed a bag. Only the necessities, my laptop, some old photo albums I didn't want her to touch, and clothes. She pleaded with me not to leave, claimed that we could resolve it, suggested that we go to therapy. She claimed to still love me. However, love is not concealed by falsehoods and whispers. While your own bed is still warm, love does not climb into someone else's. As I stood by the door, holding Max's collar, I told her, "You broke us, and I'm not sure if I'll ever be able to look at you without seeing him again." I left as she fell onto the couch with her face buried in her hands. It was chilly at night. However, it was more comfortable than the smoldering heat of treachery in that house. I returned to Naomi's place. She simply opened the door, gave me a hug, and let me fall into stillness without asking any questions. I actually slept for the first time in days. And I noticed a change in myself when I woke up. Not cured, not even close, but more lucid. I could see the road ahead, despite the broken glass, as if the fog had finally cleared. The initial days passed quickly. As if kindness alone could mend a broken heart, Naomi continued to give me homemade soup and keep me company quietly for as long as I needed to, without asking any questions. To be honest, she was probably as close as anyone could get. Max remained curled up at my side as if he were an expert on everything, and his sole responsibility was to keep me alive. The nights were what got me, though. When you're devastated, the nights are noisy. Every change in the blankets sounded like the way she used to roll over and press her feet against mine, and every creak in the wall sounded like her giggle. She smiled on our wedding day. Her fingers traced mine at the movies, and we danced barefoot in the rain on our anniversary because the restaurant flooded, and we made the best of it. The hardest part was my own recollection, which would not stop playing. It was all real. That is betrayal's mindfuck. There were some true parts. It pierces so deeply because of this. After 4 days, she sent me an SMS. Please, Theo, speak to me. I'm losing my mind. You are missed. Then another. Can we get together? Only once. There is no pressure. Simply, perhaps closure. With my fingers hovering over my computer and my heart racing, I gazed at the messages for hours. Divided between contempt and intrigue, I finally typed back, tomorrow, noon, our location. This tiny coffee shop at the intersection of Juniper and 8th was our spot. Not very fancy. The barista knows your name. The seats creak like old acquaintances, and it's just one of those locations where time seems to slow down. Every Sunday, we used to go there. I arrived early and sat in the rear booth, facing the door. I was hoping to see her enter, wanted to observe her nonverbal cues, and determine the truth before she spoke. It was like seeing a ghost emerge from a dream I no longer believed in when she finally appeared. She appeared worn out, pale, as if the guilt had finally begun to gnaw at her. She wrapped her hands around a coffee she didn't sip while she sat across from me. She remarked, "I'm not sure where to begin." I said nothing. She then began to babble, offering explanations, apologies, and flimsy reasoning that sounded more like last-ditch justifications. She said, I was lost, and Ben. I simply felt seen by him. As though I weren't invisible, as if I were important. I yelled louder than I intended to. You matter, but you were important to me. The man with whom you have built a life. Not the man who toasted to eternity and took jabs at our wedding. She recoiled, as if I had hit her. Seeing her fall apart like that made me want to feel better. I didn't, she said. You ought to despise me. I gave a nod. I believe I do. However, that's the problem. Hatred indicates that I still have feelings. Now, I simply sense completed. Her face was wiped. This shouldn't be the end. It is already. For a long time, we sat in silence. She went on to inquire, Did you love me? Yeah, I said without hesitation. Each and every day. Then she started crying more. I didn't. I had already shed all of my tears in private, away from prying eyes. She didn't follow me when I eventually got up to go. Didn't plead. Only stared at me as if to say, I ruined everything, and for once, I didn't try to restore it. This time, I didn't turn around as I ventured out into the cold. After 2 weeks, I filed for separation. The scene was not dramatic. Only documentation, pages that were dead and cold, lacking the warmth we used to have. The house was mine. She left home. Ben disappeared without any phone calls, explanations, or man-to-man apologies. Coward. Goodbye. A few months later, I was back on Reddit one evening. I didn't want any drama. Not even closure was what I was searching for. However, I saw her post once more. The first one. The beginning of it all. It had exploded. There were thousands of comments. People were putting the pieces together, pointing out how callous it was and how flimsy her defenses sounded. She had also made updates to the topic, expressed regret over it, claimed to have lost everything, that she didn't blame her spouse for leaving her, didn't say who I was. She didn't have to, though. They were all aware of her identity. More significantly, I did as well. The irony is that individuals believe that someone else provides closure. It doesn't. When you decide it's enough, you find closure. When you quit pleading with someone who has lied while maintaining a straight face. When you understand that you can survive without them. When the quiet turns into tranquility rather than punishment. Time went by. It's funny that people say that as if time were a lovely force that gently passes by, allowing you to catch your breath and heal without your knowledge. In actuality, however, time does not tiptoe. It drags. It pulls, too. And occasionally, even when you're still aiming for the past, it propels you forward. Before I realized that I hadn't thought about Claire for a whole day, 6 months had passed. In any case, not in a manner that caused my chest to collapse. Not in a way that made me want to rewind time or scream. Simply, absence. A silent one. I remained at home. It was initially eerie, with echoes of laughing that were no longer genuine filling every area. But I gradually began to make changes. Painting walls again, moving things around. I burned certain items I didn't want other people to handle and donated old clothing. I made our bedroom my own, threw out the bed we shared, purchased new sheets, and put up new artwork. I looked at our wedding photo for a long time, the day I removed it from the hallway, before placing it face down in an unlabeled box. It no longer felt like fury. The sensation was one of resignation. And that can be more potent at times. I resumed my running, a block first. Next, 2. Then, on a good day, 5 miles. Like he was pursuing an unseen goal I hadn't yet discovered, Max always sprinted ahead. Perhaps he had. Dogs are intelligent. In ways that humans cannot, they go on. They don't sit there feeling deceived. They don't repeat errors. With their hearts open and noses to the wind, they live in the now. I made an effort to emulate Max. Most of the friends checked in. Some chose sides without expressing them. Others completely disappeared, as if treachery was contagious and they didn't want to be too close to it. However, Naomi remained. She had always done so. One evening, months after everything had blown up, we sat on her porch while her phone played soft music, and we had beers. Fireflies illuminated the grass like stars that had fallen to earth as summer began to sneak in around the borders. "Do you miss her?" she inquired. I took a while to respond. "I miss who I thought she was," I added. Naomi gave a nod as if she well understood. Since she did, Ben never made contact. Not once. And to be honest, I'm happy. Nothing else could be said. He is now a footnote rather than a part in my story. A red flag. I no longer associate that name with weight. Instead, it connotes distance. On the day that would have been our anniversary, Claire texted me. One word only, "I'm sorry." I didn't respond. Not because I hadn't partially forgiven her, but because I at last realized that finding closure wasn't a discussion. It was a choice. I had also made mine. However, Reddit. Not even Reddit forgets. I was DM'd the other day by someone who claimed to have made the connection and inquired as to whether I was that guy from the post. I suppose I am. However, I'm not either. I'm more than simply the guy with the puppy, the deceived husband, or the person whose best buddy couldn't keep his hands off of him. When it mattered, I left, but when it hurt, I'm the man who stayed. I'm the guy who favored harmony above retribution, the person who declared, "This isn't the end," while standing in the ashes. Before the blossoming, there is only the burn. Someone fresh has arrived. I didn't anticipate that, didn't search for it. However, it took place in the stillness, in the post-storm calm. Her entire face lights up as she laughs. She poses thought-provoking questions. She listens when I talk about things that still hurt and is nice to Max. I don't want to rush things because it's still early. However, I feel secure once more. Claire claimed that I was safe, but not in the sense of a soft backup plan, but really secure, as if I could be myself, scars and all, without worrying about getting hurt again. Thank you if you have read this far. I am aware that this was lengthy. I am aware that there are many heartbreak stories on this site, but I had to share mine. Because I came to Reddit when everything fell apart, and I thought the world had fallen apart. I scrolled. I have read your tales. I clutched like a life raft to your counsel, your rage, and your candor. And I'm all right now. Not flawless, not over it, but all right, and occasionally. That's all.